Hey, summer science students. It is our last lesson of week 2. This is Friday, and let's get started with our lesson. Just some basics to go over before we begin. I'm sure you guys know this already, but you need to check in on school conference every day so I can mark you present, because once I see you, I'll give you 5 points just for checking in with me. And also every day there are 2 quizzes for you to take on GradPoint. There is a grade for every quiz, 5 points for above a 65, 2 points for below, 0 for not doing it. If you're struggling, I suggest that you try to take notes on YouTube Summary. So when you're watching YouTube Summary, the vocabulary word is always in red and the definition is underlined, and that's going to help you because those are the important points for our quiz. Okay, since we're at the end of the week, just to let you know, we've had 10 classes so far. 10 times 2 quizzes per day is 20 quizzes. So all the quizzes in yellow should be done by now. This little orange bracket, everything above that was from week 1. And this is what we've done so far, Monday through Thursday for week 2. Again, if you're keeping up with 2 quizzes per day, it's not that bad. If you're missing 3, 4 classes, that's when it really starts to add up. Let me know if you're feeling overwhelmed, and I'll see what I can do. I want to make sure that you guys join us no matter what the situation is. So if you're needing extra help, please reach out to me and we'll figure something out. Okay, so before the next lesson, please read blood vessels all the way to blood and lymph on GradPoint, and you're going to take the 2 quizzes for those 2 chapters, which are named the same. Let me show you where you need to go for today's lesson. So we're done with Unit 1. Please click on Unit 2. We're still in Folder 2. Remember, it's a really big folder, so please pay attention. The yellow is what we're doing today, and the blue is what we did yesterday. Now moving on to our GradPoint summary. So again, this is a summary or outline of the most important points from your GradPoint reading. It isn't everything, but it's the information that's going to really help you try to answer those quiz questions. So yesterday we learned that the smallest blood vessel in the human body is called the capillary or capillary. It's tomato. It doesn't matter how you say it as long as you know what a capillary does. So capillaries are so small that they are only 1 cell thick. So they are not thick at all. Instead, they are very thin. And if we look at this picture from yesterday, we see that we have our red blood cells in a nice single file line. And again, that's not because they're very good listeners, but because they can't fit any other way because the capillary is so narrow. So they have to go single file. So at the capillaries, diffusion occurs. Remember, diffusion is the movement of molecules like oxygen from high to low concentrations, or you could say it's the movement of molecules from an area of a lot to an area of a little. So oxygen will diffuse from the blood to the body cells. So there's oxygen on the red blood cells in the capillary, and only at the capillary will that oxygen kind of hop off the red blood cell and go into the body cell. So this is where diffusion of oxygen occurs. Let's talk about another blood vessel that is much bigger than a capillary and carries oxygen-rich blood away from the heart. And remember, A for away, A for artery. So the blood vessel that takes blood away from the heart is the artery. And yesterday we also learned that the largest artery in your body is called the aorta, and that is the artery that gets a big push from the heart and will send oxygen-rich blood all over your body. We're going to learn, so here it is on the diagram, but we're going to learn about another artery, and this artery is really special because it's the only artery that does the opposite. So I said that A for artery, A for away, and most arteries, 99% of the arteries will take blood away from the heart, but the coronary artery is the only artery that takes blood to the heart instead of away. If you ever hear the word coronary, like maybe in a TV show or at the doctor's office, you can always think of heart. So that's a really special artery because it does the opposite of what arteries usually do. Okay, so again, I mentioned the artery, especially the aorta, it's going to get a really, really big push from the heart. So the heart's going to contract and relax and really push that blood through the arteries. And as a result, the arteries are at high pressure because they get that big old push from the heart. You can actually measure how much pressure by looking at the force of the blood pushing against the artery walls, and we call that blood pressure. So if someone is measuring your blood pressure, what they're actually measuring is how strong the blood is pushing against your artery wall. Okay, blood pressure can be measured using a sphygmometer. Whew, that's a mouthful. And we kind of know this tool more as like a blood pressure cuff. I would say that's like the more like common term slang. And remember, they put it on your arm, they pump it up, and they're, again, looking for the force of blood pushing against the artery wall. And you want to have it at a certain number, not too low, not too high, or else it could cause problems. All right, stop, hit pause, because we are done with blood vessel summary, and you need to go ahead and take your quiz. If you're feeling a little confused, I would suggest rewatching the video or watching the video as you take your quiz. I think that will really help. All right, moving on to blood and lymph. So blood is a lot like chicken noodle soup. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you have chicken noodle soup, you know that it is not just all the same. It has many different parts. You've got your noodles, you got your chicken, you've got your carrots, and you have your broth, which is that like kind of watery, salty part of the soup that actually makes it soup, right? Because when you think of soup, you think of a liquid. Well, blood is the same. Blood is going to have different parts, and those parts are, you know, not chicken, carrots, and noodles, but red blood cells, which we've already talked about a lot, white blood cells, plasma, and platelets. So red blood cells, they carry oxygen because it has an iron-containing protein called hemoglobin, and hemoglobin helps oxygen attach to the red blood cell. It also gives blood that red color because it has a lot of iron in it. White blood cells help fight infection. So they will find bad things in your blood like viruses and bacteria, and they'll actually try to help fight it off by literally eating it. Platelets work with red blood cells to help make blood clots, and we're going to learn more about what a blood clot is in the next slide. And plasma is the liquid part of the blood, and it's made of mostly water. So just like broth is the liquid part of the soup, that actually kind of makes it a liquid. Plasma is the same thing. And remember, if it wasn't a liquid, it couldn't flow. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever accidentally cut yourself, like for example, gotten a paper cut or cut yourself while cooking? Couple weeks ago, I was slicing potatoes on a tool called the mandolin, which is just like a really sharp blade, and I accidentally cut off the top of my finger. Not a lot, but enough that I miss it. All right, so you know when you cut yourself, it bleeds. And then after a while, a few minutes or so, you notice that the cut stops bleeding. And this is because your blood clots. So when you first get a cut or wound, platelets from the blood will release chemicals that will produce fibrin. And fibrin is a protein that helps blood clot. Remember that the job or function of platelets were to help clot blood, and this is exactly how they do it. So they tell the body, release the fibrin, and it's going to start producing that protein. And what that protein does is it makes like almost like a net, like a fishing net. It will cover the whole of the wound or cover the opening, and red blood cells will get trapped in that net of fibrin, and as a result, they won't get out, and eventually they'll start to dry out, and it'll almost make this like covering, this protective covering. You and I would know it as like a scab. You know, that dried part when you get a cut, it's kind of like crusty looking, looks pretty gross, but it serves a purpose. Number one, stops your blood from flowing, and number two, it's going to protect your body from infection, because it's never good to walk around with like your skin open and, you know, your body willy-nilly open for infection. That's how we get sick. So again, look at this picture. I think it's really, really cool. It's probably electron microscope. Remember, we talked about those. That has the highest resolution of any microscope. And that little fibery net, spiderwebby, however you want to call it, that is the fibrin. Net, remember, it makes a little net and over the wound, and what happens is it's not big enough for those red blood cells to go pass. So they actually get stuck and make like a little like traffic jam, and it stops your blood from flowing. And it also stops bad stuff like bacteria, fungus, viruses from getting in, because now you have an open spot of your body. So really cool if you think about it. I think we take it for granted. All right, guys, please stop because we are done with blood and lymph. And what you need to do right now is take the blood and lymph quiz. Again, if you're feeling like you don't understand the quiz, roll back the video a few minutes and watch it again. And when you're done with that, you're done for the day, and have a great weekend, guys.